Good evening, friends, and welcome to another late night edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We are two retired New York City police detectives, and if you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and this guy. Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload another video. Tonight, we're going to talk to you about Bryan Kohberger, the forensic evidence. Now, you know, this case is being highly spoken about all over. There's people speaking left and right about it. There's a lot of sourced information. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of confusing information. But we're going to get into the evidence with crime scene unit expert, CSI expert Ed Wallace. Ed, how you doing, brother? It's so great to see you. Everybody has missed you tremendously. What have you been up to? And say hello to your friends and family who are out here.
Hey guys and gals, it's good to be back. Yes, I'm up to my elbows in alligators. I'm busy working. My youngest son bought a house, and I'm helping renovate the house so that he could move in shortly. With all my architecture background and everything. So I've been fixing things here, fixing things there. And my wife has basically been the general contractor and getting all these different contractors to come in and do different things. And then I got, some other issues that I can't speak about, but they weigh heavy on my mind and very stressful. And so I'm dealing with that. And in the interim, I have a death in my extended family from my State Department work, and had to run out to California to console a good friend of ours that I travel overseas with on assignment for the State Department. Lost his son, a Special Forces Green Beret. It's just got to roll with the punches, folks. I mean, roll with the punches.
Life sometimes throws you curveballs, and Ed, you've been getting them left and right. So,
yeah.
Welcome back. You see all the love in the chat. Black Rose is here. Angela S. Emily 53, Lake Lizard, Karen, Legal Minded Friends. I mean, we could go on, and everyone's sending you strength prayers and all good stuff. But people have been asking about you, and I've been communicating back and forth with Ed all along, but family comes first, and we always speak about that here. Our blue family, our immediate family, all of that stuff comes first. YouTube is way down on the totem pole when it comes to this stuff. But hey, tonight I wanted to bring Ed in here because again, his expertise when it comes to processing crime scenes and evidence collection is second to none. He knows his stuff when it comes to this. Ed, I mean, for some of the new subscribers, while you've been out and about, since the first of the year, maybe just give them a little bit of background on some of the things that you've done, just briefly, if you could, condensed version.
Well, I spent 20 years in the NYPD. 15 of those years was spent in the crime scene unit as a certified senior crime scene analyst. And I have certifications in hazardous materials and weapons of mass destruction, certifications in post-blast investigations, fire investigations, bloodstain pattern analysis, shooting reconstruction. In addition, since I retired, I opened up my own company and I do forensic consulting. I take jobs from prosecutors, defense attorneys. I have contracts with the Defense Department and the State Department. I travel internationally and I do forensic counterterrorism training and consulting. Written 4 textbooks, and that's it.
Ed, is there anything that you don't do? Is there anything you don't do? You do home improvements as well. Everything that comes from from the CSI standpoint, but you're very handy with a lot of different things. So, Ed, let's dive right into this. We have we've produced probably about 150 to 175 videos. One of the most extensively covered cases here on Crime Time with DutyRon, right second to Orrin and Orson West in Bakersfield, California. I think that's the only case that we have more videos on. But in our playlist, there's 150 plus videos on this. And Ed, you have spoken strongly about evidence collection and how it's collected and how good the evidence is when you talk about a crime scene at 1122 King Road. 4 young adults murdered in the middle of the night, and the Idaho State Crime Lab was called in quickly into the scene. We know Faro 3D laser scanners were utilized, and all of this stuff. Walk the audience through like what you had said earlier on. How important is the early stages of evidence collection, and where does it come into play in this trial that's coming up tentatively for October 2nd, Ed?
Well, so the local jurisdiction was a very small jurisdiction, and immediately they asked for help from the state level and also the FBI. So kudos to them. So they got their help. They got in there, and there was tons of evidence to document, record, collect, package, and ship off to the lab. Now, Idaho has state has a very small crime lab, and apparently they can't do transfer evidence, and they shipped out a lot of evidence to both the FBI and private laboratories that they're in contract with to conduct analysis, such as the DNA from the knife scabbard, from the buckle of the knife scabbard. And so they got in there early. They went through everything, and they kept coming back, because it appeared like every time maybe there was a new development in the investigation, or a new finding from the lab that sent them back into the crime scene, and they held the crime scene down for a good deal of time, allowing them to get in it. Now, they can't control what happened to the scene before they get there, but after they get there, they own it. And it seems, from all intents and purposes, in the beginning, the local jurisdiction was getting a lot of static about how they were handling this investigation, but they had far more information and details in the investigation about the suspect and who the suspect was early on, kept their cards close to their vests, which is a good thing. But, since we're talking about that, what I can't stand is all of these alleged law enforcement sources speaking to the media and giving out this, what is, for all intents and purposes, hearsay. And then the media broadcasting it and
And putting a twist on it.
Yeah, and putting a twist on it and causing chaos on the internet and social media and all the true crime sleuths. Just heads exploding everywhere with every new piece of information, even though there's a gag order,
Right.
and they shouldn't be doing any of this.
Right. Yeah, and that's the unfortunate part. We have DNA. Obviously, as you spoke on early in this thing, the Lacard exchange principle, right?
Mhm.
Is if someone goes into a crime scene, they bring something in there, meaning whatever perpetrator. Again, Bryan Kohberger is innocent until proven guilty. But whoever goes into a crime scene brings something in, and then when they leave, they take something out. All of the speculation and all of the things that are being spoken about across the internet are all that exactly speculation. And once this trial commences, Ed, just like in all of the other trials that we've watched unfold, there's the ooh and ah moments. And I would say, and I hope and I believe that you agree with me on this, there'll be plenty of ooh and ah moments when the Latah County prosecutor, along with the attorney general, presents their case in a court of law over in Latah County. There'll be a ton of oh my gods, and oh, I didn't think they had that, or
Yeah, I 100% agree. In addition, we're going to see what shakes out with all these sources. How much of this stuff that was reported by the news from their confidential sources is going to shake out as being true?
right.
Okay, we'll find out in the trial. Now, I will give kudos to the prosecutor here. They had secretly impaneled the grand jury, and for all intents and purposes, they were able to stop the hearing that was coming forth, where the defense team would have been able to cross-examine the eyewitness that survived in that that house, and then they would have exposed a lot of the evidence. But they went behind closed doors with a secret grand jury and got the indictment for the homicide. So I'm suspecting they have a lot of forensic evidence, the digital evidence, and your blood, hairs, and fibers. I'm sure they have all this cell phone data, all the GPS tracking data, all the social media searches that have been done, all the electronic information off his cell phone, off his computers,
Right.
whether there's stalking going on or photographs, in fact, of the victims in his phone or in his computer. All of this stuff is going to come out, and it's going to be huge.
And what I could say also to add on to that, Ed, is that, before the gag order was imposed, and the reason the gag order was imposed is the judge has a duty to make sure there's a fair and impartial jury when they are summoned to come and sit on this case. So he wants to be able to ensure that the defendant has his rights into a fair and just jury and trial, and also the prosecution has a fair shake at this thing. But we know the digital and the cell phone and all the computer and his car. We had the Tommy from Auto Crime, who's now retired, and he's going to come back and visit us. He talked about that rolling crime scene with the car, hair and fibers. But like I was saying, before this gag order was put in place, Ed, there was it wasn't a treasure trove of information, but there was information flowing from the police. And you looked at the search warrant returns where they talked about all of the things that they returned on that search warrant. The Defiant silver flashlight, 4 medical style gloves. This is all from December 30th and across the country in Pennsylvania. The white Arizona T-shirt and all of this stuff that we have listed here. I mean, I have tons and tons of notes on evidence, and they talk about 5.8 terabytes or whatever, massive amounts of evidence that has been compiled from the investigators. It takes a long time for the defense and also the prosecution to hand over. They're handing over, and probably as we speak, all of their files and all of their evidence. I wanted to play this quick piece from the crime lab to give us just a quick break here. This is from several months ago, but this is interesting because Brian Enton, our good friend from News Nation, he went over to the Idaho State Crime Lab. And let's just take a listen to what they have to say here. And we'll be back to you guys in a few minutes.
We have been outside this crime scene for a week now, and there are a lot of questions about the evidence inside and what actually happens to it. And just last night, we were standing in this spot. We're pretty much here all the time for the most part. We saw detectives walking out with brown bags in their hands, but we still don't know exactly what was inside. It was an interesting development, though. There were some very, very large bags, and it seemed like they went in to gather some kind of evidence and then came out about an hour later. Idaho State Police Forensic Services, they're poring over what has been taken from this scene. They've been in the home multiple times. News Nation got an exclusive look at the state crime lab. Alex Capriello joins me live now. Alex, there's so much frustration among the community. So many people are wanting answers quickly because, you see the TV shows. They think that they can get these results fast, but it seems like it really does take quite a bit of time.
Right, it does. That's exactly what we learned from the Idaho State Crime Lab. The fact of the matter is that this is an incredibly complex crime scene. And obviously, with the killer still on the loose, every bit of evidence is crucial to try to crack this case open.
Again, I want to just preface this is from early on in the investigation. The reason I'm playing this is they show inside the Idaho State Crime Lab, and you get to hear the director of the crime lab talk. This is the evidence that we are going to be seeing, and the work that the Idaho State Crime Lab, Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to come straight to the forefront in this trial. And the work that they did is going to be highlighted by the prosecution. So that's why we're going to play the rest of this so you guys can take a peek and look back in.
The knife, the incredible amount of blood, and the complexity of a bustling home with plenty of visitors. The forensics team is on a case like few others.
It's so very complex. We're not talking about a person that just randomly walks up on the street and stabs somebody and walks away. We're talking about 4 individuals here.
Forensics professor and Body Bags podcast host Joseph Scott Morgan also taking note of how the murderer slipped into the home on Moscow's Kings Road. No broken windows, no broken doors.
And for the investigators, that's a big piece of information. It goes from, if you're looking at a potential suspect, what level of familiarity did they have with this environment? Did they feel comfortable in it? Did they know their way around? Would they say, you know what, maybe I don't want to go in the bottom? Keep in mind, the 2 people that live downstairs, they didn't die.
And also in this case, a complicated stew of DNA from the roommates and, as a hopping college house, many guests.
It'll spin, it'll inject the blank, it'll spin back.
News Nation getting an exclusive look inside the Idaho State Crime Lab outside Boise.
So this is the DNA casework lab.
Ready for the complexity of this case and others. The lab demonstrating for News Nation how elimination fingerprinting works for cases with a crowded home or in a car with passengers.
You can see that's a really nice print that you left on the glass.
But Idaho's Director of Forensic Services reminds the public, speedy and slick TV evidence processing is not the real deal.
We call it the CSI effect. Some people think, well, we should be able to do this, but the technology doesn't exist for that yet.
Time certainly moving slowly back in Moscow with the decision to tow the victim's car weeks after the murders.
Wherever it is they're storing them, I hope that it would be at the Idaho State Crime Lab, because at crime labs, they have actual evidence processing garages. At that scene, what did they have? They had a piece of yellow tape going around.
All right, Ed, I just wanted to play that because it gave us a little bit of an inside peek. How difficult is it for someone like yourself in the crime scene unit, NYPD, go into a scene like this, and now we have knowledge, because at that time they didn't, on the body cam footage from the Moscow Police Department of getting called for noise complaints with, dozens and dozens of youths inside 1122 King Road partying. How difficult is it to separate the perpetrator's DNA and anything that he left behind with all of the multiple people that come and go at this place?
Well, once you have had a suspect ID'd, it's not that difficult, but you still have to get elimination fingerprints, elimination DNA, especially if you have an unknown male DNA, and because he wasn't in the system, he wasn't in CODIS, so he's not there. So now you have to go out and say, okay, all these people that were partying there, I need to take buccal swabs. Will you volunteer and give me some DNA so that we can eliminate you from this potential source of unknown male DNA?
Right.
So it could be quite extensive. And everything will shake out in the end. So, once they focused on Bryan, then everything started to fall in place. Now, I was talking to you earlier off screen, and how, I said how we would have done things a lot differently in the NYPD, especially our detective squads would have done things a lot differently once they identified that car and had the information of the registered owner attending college in Washington right across the border. We would have done things a lot differently. He wouldn't have been allowed to drive across country. They had enough probable cause, in my opinion, with the car data and the car information and the vehicle photographed and cell phone records to seize the vehicle, get warrants, and do much, much more than they did at the time. And they allowed him to drive across the country with his father in that car. We would have seized that car. We would have brought him in for questioning well before he ever attempted to drive home.
Right. And then also in speaking about this, we don't know all the behind the scenes stuff that they were dealing with. So there might have been some type of reasoning behind it. But again, I agree with you. The quicker they get that car, once it's identified, and it was also not only identified through the means that you just outlined, but there's also video surveillance of that car, we come to find out, the night of at that location.
That's what I was talking about. The video surveillance cameras, the gas station footage, and so forth.
And the ones from the house right next door to 1122 King Road as well. So they showed him making that absurd 3-point turn, and he aborted that, and so forth. So A lot of people in the chat are agreeing. Pauline Buckles is saying NYPD is the gold standard. I think, you're right about that, Pauline, but it's because of experience. Ed has processed over 2,500 crime scenes in his unit. The NYPD is handling such a volume of criminal activity and different various crime scenes. And by the way, Ed, I started reading Barbara's book today. Only the Dead Know.
Yeah, I still haven't received my copy. I pre-ordered it in December, and I still haven't gotten it.
Right, but she sent me the
Oh,
yeah, no, it was okay.
okay.
She said I could say, so I could share that with you, and you could start reading, and I'm on like page 55, and I'm hooked. So, but so the things are done differently in different jurisdictions. But the bottom line here is that we have a lot of speculation due to this gag order, and the gag order. People are upset. People who want to know information are upset over the gag order, but it's so important to be able to have justice served here, to have this gag order and not have people speaking freely. And I think that, a lot of it is just selfish wants and needs of human nature. And I want to know about things too, but I know that could be hurtful, and the could be is what I don't want to see. I don't want to try the could be. So,
right.
Go ahead, Ed.
No, we we have to protect the rights of the defendant as well to get a fair trial, because we don't want any excuse for this. If this guy is guilty, to get off. Okay. And so these detectives or law enforcement sources that are giving up this information, stop, please stop. Okay. What are you getting out of this? What are you gaining? All right. There's nothing there for you to gain. You're just messing things up. All right. Then the media sensationalizing everything. And, so sometimes, they'll get a little information and then they'll twist it. And in fact, I have to laugh because I saw one news reporter get corrected and embarrassed by her guest, because the guest said one thing, then she took it and twisted it, and then the guest corrected her. And I was like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why? There was no need to sensationalize what was said.
Right. Yeah, and that's the problem with some of the folks in the news. They feel like this is Hollywood, where you have to tell a story, and that's where problems come into place. I mean, here we're not going to talk about speculation or rumor. We're going to give you facts that we know, and if we don't know, then we're not going to say that this is what it is. And so I told you, Ed, before we came live, I did a search for sourced information. I just searched Bryan Kohberger sourced information, and over 150 hits came up of News Nation, Court TV, all this different Law and Crime Network, all of these different sourced stories. It was over 150. And I started looking at them and I was just like shaking my head. And this is a direct result of the gag order, but we can't say, well, blame it on the gag order. The gag order is there to protect the judicial process. So to protect the judicial process, it needs to be in place. And for those of you who are in disagreement with the gag order, I respect it. But for those of you who understand it, I appreciate you, because at the end of the day, this is about 4 murdered young adults: Zaina, Ethan, Madison, and Kaylee. And if you don't put them at the forefront, because they're not here to speak for themselves, they were brutally murdered. And for those of you who feel that, there's still a murderer out there running around, you have to just look at yourself in the mirror and say, wait a minute, there is all of this circumstantial evidence and there's all of this hard evidence. There's the DNA knife sheath. I know the DNA that was on that knife sheath. People are very, very confused about it because of this sourced information. And they talked about that Texas startup company that was selected to go through the genealogy. Ed, just talk a little bit about that, because people are very confused about it.
the news were trying to spin it as if these people were unqualified or this lab was a new startup, and nothing can be further from the truth. This is a certified lab that's been doing this for some time now, and they dotted their I's and crossed their T's. There's not going to be any issue with what they did here. All right. And for the news to twist this and sensationalize it and try to make it something, listen, we're gonna get enough of that from the defense team, because remember, it's not a defense attorney's job to prove their client innocent. All they're going to do is attack to create reasonable doubt. Now, Brian, I'm not sure how it works in Idaho, but here in New York, our defendants have a choice: a judge trial or a jury trial. Now, I don't know if Brian has that choice out there. If he does, okay, then he probably is going to go with a jury trial.
Yeah.
Okay, and obviously he's looking to change the venue right now, so he doesn't want to be tried in that town.
Right. And with a gag order going on, we're not hearing anything from the prosecution. We're not hearing anything from anybody, even from the defense.
Right.
There's a gag order.
Right.
So,
they don't want to get fined.
Yeah. So there, here, I'm going to put up Iris Hewlett's comment, because she's saying it's the prosecution who doesn't want the genealogy DNA made admissible. How do you hear that? You didn't hear that from the prosecution, because they're not allowed to talk about it. So this is, again, probably sourced information that she's quoting here, because nobody from Bill Thompson's office, the Latah County prosecutor, said anything. I want to just play this little clip, because this is Howard Bloom. This is that journalist who's doing his little book and his little expose on this case. But Brian Enton, our good friend, interviewed him, and he talks about this Texas startup, and then at the end of it, he calls it, what did he call it? A something startup, Silicon Valley startup.
Valley, yeah,
right.
They were funded from banks in Silicon Valley. So big deal.
But at the end of it, he keeps cutting Brian off. This is like a horrible interview, but I want everyone to hear what he says at the end, because at the end he contradicts himself, and right. he says, no, they're well qualified to handle this. This is going to be great for the prosecution. So let me just play this so the audience can get a good laugh. And
after we're done playing this, I have a point to make about DNA. So do
you want to make the point now?
No, I'll wait.
Okay. So I also want you guys to please do me a favor. Hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon. We're going to do 15 minutes towards the end of this. At the end of the 1 hour, we're going to take your questions. We're going to take your comments or your concerns. So put hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon, and we will highlight your comments and concerns. So this is Brian Enton. This is from a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, but I think it's kind of funny to listen to this, because he talks about this Texas startup that just take a listen.
There are new questions about the knife sheath and where it was sent to be tested. My next guest has new information on that. Joining us now is journalist and best-selling author Howard Bloom, who has worked for the New York Times and Vanity Fair. He is currently writing a book about Bryan Kohberger and covering the case for Air Mail News. Thank you so much for coming on, Howard. I'm a big fan of your recent articles on the case. Appreciate you taking the time tonight. I want to talk about the testing of this knife sheath and what you have learned about it.
Well, as you pointed out earlier, the police were all along moving forward, even though we in the media, the public, didn't know what was happening. And they were focusing on Bryan Kohberger. But they couldn't completely make the case so they could issue an arrest warrant. What they did is they had the knife sheath, and they had on the button of the knife sheath, they had touch DNA. And they had no way to tie that to Kohberger. And the Idaho lab came up with this idea of using a separate lab in Texas. This lab had specialized in proprietary devices that made what is called kinship DNA. You could figure out a relative of the DNA that you already had. And this lab was set up to investigate unsolved murders. It was backed by some Silicon Valley venture capitalists. It was a never before used in a present case, just only in cold cases.
So let me just interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you, but you're saying this lab that they sent the knife sheath to has never been used before except in cold cases?
Yes, this was the first time they were willing to take a chance. They wanted desperately to make an arrest. They wanted desperately to tie the suspect to this knife sheath. So meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, they gathered, they had that midnight garbage run.
Right.
They picked up garbage that was the father's DNA. They could then send that to the lab, tie it to the knife sheath, and they could make this kinship. And now they could say within 0.99.9% positive. Right.
I just want to zero in, Howard, on this Texas lab, because this is new information that you've reported that I didn't know until you reported it. When you say never before done technology that they're using, that it's only been used on cold cases, I mean, couldn't this be an issue for the prosecution? This seems like something the defense could really zero in on. Why did the knife sheath get sent to this lab that has never done this kind of work before?
I don't think so. I actually think it will reinforce the prosecution's case. This lab is very respectable. Their cases, their evidence has been, the methodology has been held up in court time after time. And I think this reinforces the prosecution's case. I don't think it will be, it's not a positive for Kohberger.
Look at how confused Bryan Enton is right now, because he started off saying this is a brand new company that has never done this before. And now in the same breath, anybody catching on to this? In the same breath, he's saying that this is helpful to the prosecution. So Bryan goes from happy to like, wait a minute, what are you saying? I backed it up a little bit and we'll play the rest of it.
Forces the prosecution's case. I don't think it will be, it's not a positive for Kohberger.
Let me ask you, because we did a story at the Idaho Crime Lab, looked very advanced. It was our understanding at the time that they were the ones doing all of the testing. Why would they need to send it to Texas?
They did not have the DNA that could prove kinship, relationship. And only this lab in Texas had this proprietary mechanism to do this. In fact, way before the Kohberger, the case, the state of Idaho had signed a contract with this lab in case something came up in a cold case to use this lab's facilities. And now they came up with the idea, I don't know whose idea it was in Idaho, but let's send it to this lab to get what we needed. Therefore, they had the garbage run in Pennsylvania, where the state police in Pennsylvania were able to get DNA from Kohberger's father. They were able to tie that to the lab and to the knife sheath, and that's how they solved to their.
All right, I'm going to stop it there because that's enough. Ed, again, this is laughable. I love Bryan Enton. He's a good friend. We're going to have him back on the channel real soon. He's going to come and visit us. We're going to talk everything Kohberger and what he's new, anything new that he's working on. But Bryan and I speak on text message back and forth. I had a conversation with him just 2 weeks ago, and we love and respect the work that he does. But he was filling in for Dan Abrams, and that was some time ago. That he was talking about this. Anything that you have to add to what was said here, Ed, about DNA and so forth? Well,
as we said earlier, it's the interview started off as like trashing this technology in this lab, and it was all, and then by the end of the interview, it's the best thing since sliced bread. There was nothing wrong with what they did. Okay, and it'll hold up in court. I am confident of the fact that will be the case. Now, will they use it? Well, that's up to the prosecution. Okay. Now, I said earlier, that we would be doing things differently if the NYPD was involved in this. Once we ID'd Kohberger, we would have UCs on plain clothes on the covers, following him and looking for discarded DNA. Right. If he would have threw out a cigarette, or he would have threw out a cup of coffee, or something like, we would have snatched it up, had the chain of custody thoroughly documented, and got it to the lab.
Yeah, it's amazing that November 13th to December 30th, he was moving about and going about his daily business, getting stopped and getting car stops in Pullman, Washington. We're seeing all this body cam footage and stuff coming in. Like you just said, Ed, it's just amazing that he had all of that time. And on December 30th, or the night there leading into it, he was surveilled by FBI and state police in Pennsylvania using all kinds of cleaning things. They talked about he was using bleach in his car, and he had the gloves on at 4 o'clock in the morning and stuff put in baggies and so forth. It's just amazing that that he was allowed to be able to do the things that he did for that period of time. That's a month and a half. It's a long time.
Yeah, we would have been all over him like white on rice.
Yeah, and I know it's easier said than done. It's easier to say this and Monday morning quarterback it, but we know for a fact that that's how things go here. That's how it is.
I mean, we have a very large department with a lot of specialty units. We have a larger budget. So, I mean, I understand Idaho and this town doesn't have all the budget and resources and manpower that we do. And I'm not saying that, they should. Okay. I'm not knocking them for what they did. I'm just saying, had this happened here, we would have done it this way.
Right.
And we would have brought him into the precinct squad room and questioned him about his movements, about what they found on the videotapes of his car, okay, and that information. And there's another opportunity to get his DNA.
Right. I do think that they did the best that they could with the resources that they had here. Addie Martinez is saying they did their best. Yeah, they were definitely not equipped for a quadruple murder. Moscow PD, absolutely not. Last murder that they handled was 7 years in the past. So things are done and happen differently in different places. Major metropolitans like New York, Miami, Atlanta, Chicago, they're seeing tons and tons of crime, handling tons and tons of crime scenes. This Moscow PD were caught by surprise with this, and it shook and rocked that whole community and the surrounding areas. Shockwaves. Nobody is the same since this has happened. The only solace is that they do have a perpetrator in custody. And there's just so many people. I feel there's so many people who feel that they got the wrong guy because of this sourced and bullshit information. And I hate to use curse words, but it's the bullshit information that is causing people to say they're railroading this guy. You can't say with a good sound mind that they're railroading the guy because we don't know exactly the totality of all of the evidence.
Listen, in many high-profile cases, you're going to get a small percentage of the population that are going to say things like that. Okay, just like the Signoff brothers in the Boston bombing. Okay, the younger brother, he's the wrong person. He didn't do this. He didn't do this, and then he had a cult following. All right, it's just. Okay, it's, for the lack of a better word, crazy.
Yeah. And I hate to say it. There's a lot of sourced information that if the info is good, it's going to be good. Like sourced information is saying that there's multiple pictures on Bryan Kohberger's phone of these victims downloaded either off of Instagram or one of their socials. If that in fact is true, that's great, but we don't know if it's true or not. That's why I never speak about it, because I'm not going to go out there and say this is Bible, this is what they have, when it's coming from that sourced information. So ATS News is here, and I want to say thank you to you, Amber. I saw. I think you did a video like 2 or 3 days ago showing kind of the timeline, kind of chronological. I looked at that quickly today. So good job on that. Everybody should go over and check out her channel too, ATS News. Ed, what do you got up on the screen?
Science doesn't lie. Eileen, you nailed it, and that's why I love forensics. We find the science, we interpret the science. All right, it is what it is. We let the chips fall where they may. Okay, people lie, witnesses lie. Witnesses sometimes don't realize or intentionally lie. Sometimes they just get it wrong. Eyewitness testimony is terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, it is terrible. It's been proven time and time again.
And
All
it, and it degradates over time.
Yeah.
your
Now,
memories.
there was a question here that keeps popping up, and I just want to answer it. So, yeah, there could be a problem with any forensic evidence found in the vehicle having the vehicle driven such a long distance in time. But the fact that the vehicle was in the suspect's possession for that length of time before he started driving across country. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. There was another one here. Good one. Yes. No emotion or bias in real science performed by real scientists who are not affected by politics or money.
Thank
Because
you.
money and politics have corrupted our science, our
Right.
medicine, and other areas. I've seen it time and time again where they try to shut down scientific debate, which was the cornerstone of science, okay, over politics and money.
Absolutely. Well said, Ed. In the search warrant return from Kohberger's home, I believe it was line 35, ID in a glove, inside a box in the house in the Poconos in Albrightsville. Now, it doesn't say in that, such and such ID. It just says NID. It doesn't name whose ID is in there. So people were running with that. And I have this highlighted on my notepad because people were talking about this. Line 35 says in a ID, it just says an ID, one ID in a glove, in a box, in the house, in the Poconos, Pennsylvania. That's what they collected. But people twist it and say it's one of the murdered victims' IDs, one of the girls.
Where did they get that information? We don't know that.
We don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hope that it is.
No, that would be a home run. Absolutely.
But I'm not going to sit here and blast on our YouTube channel, Ed, that it's one of the victims. And that's what the media does. It's very irresponsible to do that. And to say, it's one of their IDs. It doesn't say that in the search warrant return.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to get fluff and you're not going to hear sensationalized bullshit here. We're going to call it as we see it because we walk the walk and talk the talk. We were New York City police officers and detectives for 20 plus years. And we know how this stuff goes. If they're not listing and it's not specific, then why report it? Because that's their job, is to report and to get the oohs and ahs and get the people and pay the advertisers who have commercials on their stuff. There's one from Iris Hewlett is always checking and testing. Go ahead, Ed. What is that?
Well, she's saying that I'm sure you know that law enforcement, FBI, and prosecution must follow pretrial criminal protocols by the DOJ on forensic DNA. The DOJ has, not in this case, the DOJ doesn't, this is a state prosecution. This is not a federal prosecution. They will have to follow the criminal procedure laws and the evidence laws in Idaho with the use of the DNA evidence for the trial.
Thank you for that, Ed. Some people are misinformed sometimes.
Well, no, not that she's misinformed. I mean, she may be talking about CODIS, and there are certain things that you'll have to, the state will have to do to about CODIS and so forth.
But what I'm saying is some people could read that and then get misinformed by that. Kel is a member for 2 months, and she says she's a member of the DutyRon Gold. Kel says, just stopping in. I'm still at work. Hello, DutyRon and Ed and the mods in chat. We'll replay. Have a good evening. Thank you, Kel. Ed, anything else? You see anything, DutyRon, Ed? Oh, here's one, Cindy G. Ed, why were the girls and or anyone at the crime scene who did not call police, not arrested? Instead, they were treated as victims. They broke the law by not calling and tampering with evidence. So again, I'm going to have to say, how do we know this? and it's not a crime. Ed, you want to take that? I mean, it was directed at you.
Yeah, I understand, Cindy G. I don't agree with what you just wrote here. They didn't break the law by not calling the police if they didn't understand what was going on. Once they found what was going on, well, they still didn't realize what was going on, even at the initial phone call to the police. At that time, it was just that one of the roommates had passed out or fainted from what they found inside of the house. And you have to have intent with a lot of what you're saying here. Okay. Was there an intent to tamper with evidence, or was there an intent rather to cross-contaminate anything or so forth? Like when those people started walking through the house, they still didn't understand what exactly had transpired there. Okay. Now, once it sets in, excuse me, once it sets in as to, hey, we got 4 people stabbed to death in here, you would think that they would snap out of it and realize, oh shit, we're in a crime scene. Let's get the hell out of here and let's call the police.
Right. Yeah.
But,
So we don't know exactly what happened because nobody was there. None of us were there. We're just getting secondhand information from people who we don't know what's true and what's not. Infamous Truth Teller says at DutyRon and hashtag Ed Wallace, Jerry and case probably more than likely won't be televised. Yeah, the jury in the case probably will not be televised. Decided Lori Vallow case because I think I do have some discretions. I think high profile case. This won't be televised, and reporters may be able to tweet from inside the courtroom, just as we saw in several of recent trials. It's definitely not going to be televised. I would have to say I would bet my pension on that.
Well, the judge will have to make that decision. The press is going to try.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Go into a little bit of the judge and do the judicial side of this. Miss Burkhart from Burkhart Law, she's a great friend of this channel, and she put out some really good videos. She went to the arraignment and she reported a video. She uploaded a video. I encourage everyone to go over and subscribe to her and check out her channel. I'm going to ask her to come on with us to give a little explanation and maybe just talk to our audience, Ed, a little bit about this judicial process. But that's not what this video is about. We're talking about evidence and crime scene and what they have that we know of. What we know thus far, and that's all that Ed and I could speak on. We can't speak on the source and the rumors and wild speculation because we won't do that. D Banks, thank you for being here. Infamous Truth Teller, thank you for thanking me. The MVAC, people, I've been seeing this coming up. Luke has moved on to another company. Luke Hall is no longer with Faro, but we know that the MVAC was used in this case. It was confirmed. So we don't know what came of the MVAC and how much it was used. So.
Well, that we do know from the court filings on what they did in Pennsylvania with the car. They took the rubber off the gas and brake pedals. They submitted that. They took the steering wheel, seat belts, took all of these different door handles and so forth and submitted it to the lab. And hopefully they used the MVAC on these things to see if they could get the DNA of the victims from inside of Brian's car.
Right. Hey, Ed, do you want to talk? Can you talk a little bit about what they do with cars? And I know you just gave a little bit of an overview, but you talked about even the cabin air filter to see where this car has traveled. Now it's traveled, we know, all across the United States. They had to take a direct route to Pennsylvania. They went down into Colorado and it took this very weird route, according to information. So we don't even, I don't even know if it's confirmed that they took that route, but the car traveled so much. Would they be able to still pull stuff out from the Moscow, Idaho area, from that cabin air filter? And
but what would the benefit be? Because he's known to frequent that area. So
They have him on video, and he
right, and the car is seen in the area, and
Right.
it's on video and so forth, as you said, and the tracker, when he turned his cell phone on, when he turned it off, all of that stuff is there.
Right. And all that data will be very, very.
But the other route area, now, as you're driving through these locations, Locard exchange principle is still in effect, and you're sucking pollen and other insects and indigenous wildlife from different parts of the country into the vehicle's air filter for the vehicle, for the engine, into the cabin filter. Then you're getting soil and other components from the road up in the wheel wells and other parts of the vehicle. So, I mean, you could do a lot with that. I've seen cases where we've taken. I've had a case with both soil and insects where the entomologist, the bug expert, was able to tell us that this particular bug is not indigenous to New York City, but it is in certain parts of New Jersey and certain parts of North Carolina. But they're active in two different seasons. The one in Jersey is active around the time of the investigation, whereas the one in the Carolinas is not. And then I had another case where the bugs, the flies that were on the decedent's body that was in the back of a trunk of a car parked in Brooklyn from Canada, the flies that I trapped and then sent to the entomologist were not New York City flies. They were flies from Canada.
Wow. You've done some really cool stuff, Ed, with investigations. And when you processed over 2,500 crime scenes, that's part of some of the things you run into. Let's say hello to some people in the chat. Florida Pete is here. Okie dokie. Michelina Sereno. Princess Mitch had back surgery the other day, so she was in the chat. I hope you're recovering well, Princess Mitch. She's got her husband Rob, who's playing Nurse Ratchet for her. So thank you for being here. I saw you earlier. I hope you're healing up well. Karina 007 says Canadian flies. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much that's been spoken on here. And, we talked about the hair fibers that they recovered in Pullman. And we hope and pray that some of the stuff matches back to the crime scene. And Barbara even spoke very extensively about how small of a possibility that he didn't leave any of his DNA inside that crime scene. I find it hard to believe that if he was in there, even if it was for 16 minutes or a very short period of time, to stab to death 4 people, granted 2 are in the same bed, 2 in the same bed, just to go through that without leaving anything behind or taking something out is literally impossible. I mean, I'm hoping and praying that when this trial commences, that we have these ooh and ah moments. And I think, Ed, you said it early on. Evidence and the science is what's going to is what's going to break this case. So, and I think it did. So, what do you see?
So Emma is asking, Ed, what would it take for the evidence to be thrown out in court? Well, it would take a really good argument that a judge is going to buy into suppressing evidence. Now, the typical way things like this occur is they attack the initial collection of the evidence. So if they can attack the collector and show that the collector was somehow incompetent or didn't follow protocol with a particular item of evidence, then that might be a way that the judge could see fit to suppress that evidence. And then none of the lab work on that particular item of evidence gets in either.
Right. And Karen, legal-minded friend, Karen Cole, she's our good friend. She does all of our Instagram shorts. She says, what about cross-contamination?
Absolutely. And that could be an issue. But was it intentionally done or was it accidentally done before the crime scene investigators got there? So that will have to be answered out.
Right. Emma's saying, thank you for highlighting her comment. If you want your comment highlighted on the screen, put #Ed or #DutyRon or both, and we will get to your comments. This is the part of the show that we're going to be. Ed is our good friend, Florida Pete. Hey, Pete, good to see you, brother.
I'm not traveling this week. I'm home. I'm working at night and doing construction in the morning.
He's a busy guy. Look who's in the chat. Lieutenant Pete Pranzo, Harlem Raiders. Hey, LT, good to see you, man. Thank you. Thank you for being here. So there is Princess Mitch. She had the surgery, and there's her nursing assistant. Thumbs up to DutyRon and Ed Wallace. What is this? Oh, yeah.
Pauline Buckles. It wasn't just Dennis Fung from the O.J. Simpson case that messed that thing up too. It was like the detectives there who took a vial of blood, instead of bringing it to the lab or bringing it to the precinct and vouchering it and then putting it into evidence custodian. They took it home and put it in their refrigerator. And then Dennis Fung, he kept stuff in the back of his trunk and let it cook there for hours.
Yeah.
And then you can't send the same crime scene investigator from a street scene to another scene that are potentially associated.
Yeah.
And a whole nother team should have gone there.
Candy Girl, I'm trying to look back, and I know this is going to be impossible, and I'm sorry that I missed yours. She said you skipped all of mine, and I tagged you each time. So let's see if we could look back. Hold on, Candy Girl. I'm sorry. It's hard. The chat's moving really fast, and I did. There hasn't been a trial yet. Wait a minute. All right, Candy Girl, if you could highlight your comment one more time, just do it. I'm looking now, so please send your comment in. So I wanted to. Okay, go ahead, Ed.
What about the dog hair? Oh, that would be huge if they found the dog hair and were able to link the hair directly back to that dog and the dog's DNA. That would be huge if they found that in his car, in his apartment on campus. You know, how does he explain that?
Yeah.
I know it's a trace transfer evidence, but then who's the intermediary? All right. Somebody that he knows that knows the victims, and there's some kind of interaction and cross contamination or transfer. That's why it's called, hairs are called trace transfer evidence.
Yeah.
And by the way, folks, it is the pollen that is killing me here. It's allergy season, and my postnasal drip is out of control. And so don't be too concerned about the coughing.
Ed's healthy. I know I'm going to get a lot of questions and comments and concerns about that. Postnasal, and it's just been really bad this year. Joey, I think that's just a coincidence. Talking about DutyRon, what do you think about the murders being committed on the same date as the Amityville Horror murders by Ron DeFeo? Yeah, I think it's just coincidence, but thank you for that comment. There was another one that I wanted to highlight. Where did it go? Oh, boy. All right, so I didn't see it. Ed, I wanted to also mention the death penalty is the prosecution has 51 days, I believe now. Correct me if I'm wrong, for those of you who are the digital experts and the folks who are counting down the days. They had 60 days from the arraignment to make known. So it could be any time within those 60 days. So I think it's 51 days as of the end of today's business, so 50 as of tomorrow. But they can come out with this at any time, or they can wait till the last day. And there could be negotiations for if he pleads guilty to not have the death penalty on the table. But I think that if there was ever a death penalty case to prosecute in the state of Idaho, this is one of them. It falls well within the guidelines of a capital punishment case. There's only been 3 executions since 1977 in the state of Idaho. Only 3 executions since 1977. So even if he is tried under the death penalty and is convicted, and the firing squad or by lethal injection, I don't think they can get the drugs. All kinds of liability issues. Firing squad has been approved. That would take a good 2 decades before that even happens. Ed, what do you got up on the screen?
So Margaret writes, Ed DutyRon, please, can Ed describe what jury may see when entering the crime scene 1 year later that helped deliberation? What would be interior conditions? It's going to be altered. It's going to be altered from the top. The furniture is gone. you may see locations where evidence were cut out of walls and floors and things of that nature. So you might see some damage to those areas where the evidence was removed. The defense team got in there as well and did what they were allowed to do per the court restrictions. So it's going to be totally different than it was that night. That's why they have the photos. That's why they have the 3D laser scan. And speaking of 3D laser scan, Iris writes, you mentioned Faro, and yes, I have seen MPD website press release reference to using a 3D scanner, but doesn't the crime scene need to be pristine? Like I said, Iris, you can't control what happens to the crime scene before you get there. You can only control once you get there. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean if the crime scene was contaminated by the college students that were called and went to the scene and traipsed through the scene, that you don't use the scanner. You still use the scanner. You document, just like you take photographs. Well, you wouldn't not document the crime scene by photography because it was not pristine. Most crime scenes are not pristine. Just think of the way emergency responders go to the scenes, whether it's fire, EMS, or the police. Their initial response is chaotic, and they inadvertently create some altercation. They alter the crime scene. They alter the crime scene, and it happens. And so you just roll with those punches too. You have to document it.
Here's one for you, Ed, at DutyRon, hashtag Ed. Do you ever teach in Australia? Forensics fascinates me. I love listening to you. Thank you, Nay.
I've taught with Australians in the Jakarta Training Center in Indonesia, and I will be down under next year.
That's awesome. I want to come with you, Ed. I want to come.
You
can. Here's Christine Marie, hashtag DutyRon. Can Moscow State or FBI still investigate people commenting online, even though they have Bryan Kohberger? I don't think that they have the time. Ed, you can comment on this. I know we would discount a lot of the online. I want to say conspiracy theorists or people who have thoughts and visions and dreams and so forth. I don't think the investigators look too heavily into that. But I would say no. Ed, what's your thoughts on that one?
I doubt that at this point.
Bigger fish to fry, right?
Yeah, I doubt at this point they're going to be wasting any money on looking for somebody else online.
Yeah, right. Again, listen. There's lots of court documents, and there's a lot of documents out there. You could read them to your heart's content. But the bottom line is that once this trial commences, and it's tentatively on for October 2nd, and lots of people are saying, I don't think it's going to go. It's going to get delayed, and it may very well get delayed. But the bottom line is once the trial commences, that's when we will see the full cards exposed. Everything up until then is all going to be pure speculation, rumors, people hypothesizing and theorizing and all of this stuff. There's Candy Girl. Hold on a second. Wait a minute. What do you got?
Well, Iris wrote, Faro scanner requires original non-altered crime scene. I'm sorry, Iris, that is not true. Okay.
Yeah, Iris has a lot of information, but she's not getting it from places. And Ed, you speak on that because right?
Right, because I've done it. I've done scans. I have scanners in my training. Okay, you're never going to get a pristine crime scene.
Yeah,
it's just not going to happen. And how would you know if it was pristine or not if you don't have all the details?
Correct, Mundo. Candy Girl, finally, I got her comment. She says, at DutyRon, my main question was, what led them to Bryan? I'm a Gemini, so it's part of my nature to ask a lot of questions. Thank you, guys.
There's nothing wrong with that. The vehicle led them to Bryan.
His car led them to them. The video evidence that they collected from the adjacent home. There was a whole multitude of different things, but the Pullman, Washington campus police officer who was on his night shift decided to start running plates, and he came up with this 2015 Hyundai Elantra, and lots of people are now or have been since it's all come out. Why were they saying we need a 2011 to 2013 when in fact they knew it was to 2015? There's many different reasons they could have done this. And one of the main things I think of is that they didn't want to spook Bryan Kohberger. They wanted him to say, whew, they're not looking for a 2015. I'm good. My car is white, but they're not looking for me. Ed, am I off on that?
Well, I mean, it could have been a purposeful put out there for that reason to not let them know that they're onto him, or in the FBI report, I do believe they had made a mistake. I mean, they gave a range of years. They didn't give exact. They tried as best they could using photogrammetry to try to figure out exactly what year and make and model that car was. But it was close enough to find the real one.
Right.
Okay. So Margaret writes, do you expect defense to use scenes, law enforcement going into crime scene without booties or removing personal items for family? I could see that. I could see that as an issue at trial. I could see the defense making claims that they didn't follow crime scene protocols for personal protective equipment, such as booties, gloves, tie-back suits, hoods, things of that nature. Some of them had it. Others were wearing raid jackets and pants. Some slipped on booties and gloves. But it was a mixed match of different personal protective equipment. But it can become an issue.
Yeah, and we spoke. We did quite a few shows about that, Ed. So if you look at our playlist, and guys and girls, if you're not yet subscribed to DutyRon and Ed Wallace, Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed, please consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up. I'm going to look at the poll. I did a poll in the beginning of this. I'm going to go and look at it now while you're scanning for some of the comments. D Banks, thank you for being here. Jury, Miss Donna Marie, Black Rose 11. Jennifer Nobles was in the chat earlier. I don't know if she's still here, but she said she loves listening to us because she learns when she listens, and I like that. All right, so the poll was, do you think the police have the right person? Meaning Bryan Kohberger. 90% said yes, 10% said no. So I want to just encourage people to continue to go over and vote in this poll, because there's over 1,300 people here in the chat, and I'd like to see more people chiming in on that poll if you guys want to. So right now there's 1,100 votes. 90% still holding strong for yes, that the police have the right person. 10% no. Ed, what's your thoughts on that poll?
Who's doing the poll?
We did it.
Yeah, it's not really a scientific poll, is it?
No.
Okay. So
it's
I believe in science. But you're asking the science guy. I believe in science. So for what it is, it's interesting. Would I allow it in a court of law? No.
All right. So let's do this to lighten up the load a little bit here. I want to give away, courtesy of Ed Wallace and Crime Time with DutyRon, 20 memberships, channel members. Let's give out some memberships. 20 is a lot, but I want to give them out because everybody's been hanging tough with us. If you are interested in a membership, make sure you subscribe. Put a 1 in the chat if you are interested in a free 20. Well, we're going to send out 20. Let's send out 20 as soon as we start getting some people hitting the thumbs up and liking and subscribing to the channel. Life's a Beach says, I want a membership. I like that. That's straightforward. I want a membership. So yeah, let's do it, Ed. You don't have your phone, so
I do.
You do? All right,
yes.
Let's do it.
You want the sound effect?
Yeah, I want the sound effect because I'm not sure if my credit card is going to go through. So you let me know when you're ready with the sound effects. Everybody put a number 1 and let me know if you want to be a 30-day free trial in the memberships. A lot of people. Debbie, Cammie, Erica, Zoe, I'd love a membership. Ferris, Nicole, Danielle.
You ready?
Yeah, hold on a second. I'll tell you when.
Okay, hold on.
Do it back up.
All right, I'll back it up. Ready?
Hold on. It's processing. I'll tell you when to do it. All right, go. There it is. Your gift has been announced. 20 memberships. Holy crap. It went through, Ed.
Okay, so who's got them?
Bubba got one.
Bubba?
Bub's Babe.
Bubba Gum?
Yep. Candy Cane was gifted. Candy Cane.
Mm-hmm.
Lexi was gifted a membership. Erica Olson. Ruth D was gifted a membership. Moonlight View saying woohoo. Carol Ann Layton was gifted a membership. Thank you. Welcome. DC Pacific Northwest got another free membership. This is her third time, I think. Candy Scarrett, she got a gifted membership. Jennifer Noble says, I'd just like another pen. I shared mine with Felicia and Roro, and they took it. They took it to me on pen. I'll send you a pen. Little One was gifted a membership. Nurse Fifi also was gifted a membership. She's in Scotland. Thank you.
Scotland.
Jay Rich was gifted a membership.
Remember, if it's not Scottish, it's crap.
Crystal McCormick was gifted a membership. Oh, Crystal. Cherry Hill was gifted a membership. Jory got a membership. Oh no! Congratulations to the winners. To the winners.
To the windows.
The windows. Janice from Oz was gifted a membership, and Love versus Money was gifted a membership. Debbie Galloway saying thank you, yay. D Banks is saying whammies. All right, so I think that's everybody. That was 20. We gifted together. You and I did that, Ed.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I like to do the give backs. I like to give back to our memberships. Listen, we're at 166,000 subscribers. I really love an engaging community, and so does Ed. I will take 166,000 engaged subscribers over 1 million non-engaged subscribers any day of the week. And I love that when we do these type of live streams, Ed, we get the questions, we get people asking us the tough questions, but you have to understand, you're not always going to hear what you want to hear. Ed's going to answer you to the best of his ability and knowledge. He's not going to just tell you something, and I'm not going to tell you something just because you want to hear it.
Yeah, and I'm not looking to embarrass anybody or
No.
make anybody feel bad. I just, want to get the correct information out there.
And I think that's what makes us different. This is what separates Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace from some of the others that might be out there. Just really going with the narrative or what's popular. I have made many videos and many live streams that people were just so angry about. But I'm not here to just tell you things to make you happy. So again, you're going to get it straightforward. You're going to get it from experience. Ed Wallace, just a chock full of information. He's out there training. Oh, sorry, Ed. I'm sorry. Go ahead, get it. I'm sorry. Scotland forever.
Alba Gobra.
Yeah. All right, Ed, let's get ready to wrap this thing up. I want to ask you two things. Number one, based on what we have heard bona fide from law enforcement, from the search warrants, what we know before this gag order went into place, does the prosecution have a solid case going forward? And what's your thoughts on this trial kicking off October 2nd, 2022?
Okay, not knowing everything that's the prosecution has, but knowing that they got an indictment. But again, folks, I guess by now everybody in the true crime family knows that you can indict a ham sandwich. Okay, typically the grand juries go in the direction that a district attorney wants them to go. Occasionally, you'll get a rogue grand jury that doesn't, but they're rare. Okay, and I do love that when it happens. But anyhow, I think they have. Again, this is speculation on my part. I think they have a very strong case. I think they went down every avenue. They left no stone unturned. And I mean, just the subpoenas alone to all the social media networks, the internet providers, the cell phone providers, all of that information. I believe they left no stone unturned, and they have a really strong case. Now, let's see as we get closer to trial, what wheeling and dealing goes on. If they start, because now you got to understand discovery is occurring. All right. They got October 2nd, right? October to start the trial. And they have a lot of discovery the defense team is going to be getting, and they're going to hire their own experts, as they've done so already with some of the aspects of it. And they're going to look at everything. And if they have their experts look at it, and the next thing you know is they're trying to negotiate a plea to get the death penalty off the table, then that will be a key indicator of how strong this case is.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Ed, I wish we had a crystal ball and that we could predict these things, but there's many variables. And I'm so glad that you said what you just said, because these are all what ifs, right? We need to know and realize that there's so much in the deck of cards that we have not seen and that will come forward. And I said it several times during the course of the show. It's about these victims, Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogen, and Kaylee Gonzalez. I want to play just a quick clip before we break out. This is from the arraignment, and Maddie Mogen's dad made a statement in this, and he was interviewed just, believe it was the day or the day of this arraignment. And what he said was very powerful. And it may bring some of us watching in the audience to tears, but it shows all of our victims here. Ed, what does that say?
Jory writes voir dire, and I just, right away it takes me to my cousin Vinny when Joe Pesci, was practicing law without a license in Alabama. It talks about voir dire. I love it.
These youths. Did you say youth?
What's a youth? You mocking me, boy?
Let's play this. This is from a local news. I want you guys to listen to Madison Mogen's dad. What he says here is very powerful. I'll let it play from the middle.
Police say he stabbed 4 University of Idaho students to death. Bryan Kohberger appeared in a Latah County courtroom wearing an orange jumpsuit on his thin frame and shackles on his feet.
Okay, we are now on the record in State of Idaho versus Bryan C. Kohberger.
As the judge read the names of the victims, Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, some family members there grew emotional, wiping tears from their eyes. Kohberger's arraignment comes just 1 week after a grand jury formally indicted him on the 5 charges he already faced. Community members on the grand jury believed prosecutors showed enough evidence to move forward with the case and bring it in front of a district court judge. Judge John Judge read Kohberger his rights and explained the first-degree murder charges he faces carry a penalty of life in prison or death. The judge then asked if Kohberger was ready to plead.
Do you understand the charge in count 5, murder in the first degree? Do you understand the maximum penalty?
Yes.
And Ms. Taylor, is Mr. Kohberger prepared to plead to these charges?
Your Honor, we will be standing silent.
And because Mr. Kohberger is standing silent, I'm going to enter not guilty pleas on each charge.
Former Ada County Chief Deputy Prosecutor Gene Fisher told me standing silent doesn't hurt the defendant. Quote, if anything, standing silent could help the defense if they intended to file a motion of Kohberger's competency. They wouldn't want him assisting the court by answering legal questions and then turn around and file a motion saying he's not presently competent to stand trial. The state has 60 days now to decide whether they plan to seek the death penalty. The judge set Kohberger's trial for October 2nd, giving both sides 5 months to prepare their cases.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
It's expected to last 6 weeks. That timeline could always change between now and then. 2 other hearings happened after the arraignment, one regarding the media and Gonzalez family's fight against the gag order in this case.
There's a lot of potential irreparable harm from media that is affecting a fair trial.
The third hearing Monday morning, setting a date for arguments over evidence. Kaylee's family shared a statement with me saying it's important we keep the victims' memories alive. They're grateful for the grand jury indictment, but are disappointed the judicial process hasn't been more efficient in changing the gag order. This weekend, Madison's dad shared with NBC how special his daughter was.
I want people to remember Maddie as just being a loving, caring, just beautiful person who everybody just misses so much, and we're just all so proud of. And this has been the most difficult thing that any of us will ever go through, and it's just important to stay close to your loved ones and your family in times like this. I would say, I mean, a lot of us are going to counseling. I've gone to counseling, and it's helped a lot, just being able to talk about things and remember her in the best way that we can and keep her memory alive.
Very sad. But he said it well. Keep your loved ones close to you, because you never know what's going to happen. So I thought he said that very well, and that was an important piece there. Ed, let's wrap it up. I think we covered a lot here tonight, an hour and 21 minutes. Thanks for staying extra time. We're going to be following this, but there's really not much to talk about other than waiting for the trial to start. If anything breaks before that, we will be on it, but Ed and I will be looking. And if you guys have any cases you want us to cover, send them into dutyron.com, email me on there. There's a contact form. Send us stuff in. If you have questions, we greatly appreciate it. Right, Ed?
I think absolutely. We got that evidence hearing coming up. Maybe we'll learn more stuff then. Yeah,
we're hoping. If anything is reportable where we could speak on it, and it's something that's significant, we'll definitely bring it to you live. So on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, I want to wish you guys all a good Wednesday evening, and some of you guys are into Thursday already. I may be live Friday night. I'm not sure, but I think that might be the next time I'm going to be live. And I don't know what your schedule's like, Ed. You said, if you're available, we might do something Friday night, or I might just go live with Melanie, depending on what's going on with you.
I'm home. Friday night forensics.
Friday, maybe we'll do a Friday forensics with Ed Wallace, and we could talk on some other cases. I know in Harmony Montgomery's nothing going on with her case, but she's still not recovered. Adam Montgomery is being trial started on his gun charges today, so they're trying him up in New Hampshire, I believe, or in Massachusetts. I think it's New Hampshire. So we'll look into the Adam Montgomery trial, and we'll do a Friday forensics if you guys are into it. All right. So Ed, I know you have something to say, as you always do, to everybody on the way out.
Stay safe, stay prepared, watch your six.
Good night from Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. Stand by for a message from the cop team. That's Kara, Oscar, and Popeye. Ed's dog, my dog, and that bird over there. He's 37 years old.
What's the word, Ron? What's the word? Bird is the word.
Bird. Good night, everybody. God bless.